Welcome to Life Coach Live. My name is Tyler Nouwens, and I'm with my good associate friend, Paul Heron. And today we are going to talk about the 3 essential questions for life coaches. Before we begin, I want to check in with you, Paul, and see how you're doing. How are things for you, my friend?
I am going very well, thanks, Tyler. It's great to be back here again. Continuing on from the conversations that we've had over the past couple of weeks now, I'm really looking forward to this one. I think it's an interesting topic that, I can't wait to get stuck into.
Right on. Great. Okay, well, there's 3 essential questions that I think life coaches need to ask themselves as life coaches, but just in general, every human being needs to ask these questions. And the first question I've got on the screen is, who am I? And what's interesting about it, Paul, is that why don't we ask that question? Who am I? And the answer, well, I'll throw that one at you. Why don't we ask? This is a curveball. Why don't we ask ourselves that question? Do you ask yourself that question?
I have done some work over my journey thinking about that question, but one thing that's come to mind immediately, and I know this is a presentation that you've put together, and I've looked over the questions over the last half an hour or so since I became aware of them. But what came to my mind immediately when I saw this was the conversation, I guess, that I had with myself once I had completed all my life coach training, got my certification, by all measures, ready to embark on my coaching journey. The one thing that I really struggled with was the identity of referring to myself as a coach. I struggled with it for a while, actually. That feeling of not being ready. And I know we've spoken about this previously, but that feeling of not being ready sits at that identity level of who I am. That's why we don't feel ready. I, thrown in the deep end eventually. And over the last 3-4 years, I have figured things out and come out the other side a completely different person. And, now very much am very comfortable identifying as a life coach, as someone who has been able to establish a successful business. There's a lot going on at that identity level that I do have a much deeper connection with now because of that journey that I've come through. But I can clearly remember, really struggling to talk to friends, family, even people that I was just meeting. Those first few times I introduced myself to new people as a life coach, they were daunting times for me.
Yeah.
So that's what came up for me when I first saw that question. That's the thing that came up most for me.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. That's perfect, and I can totally relate to that. That was one of my biggest obstacles to face and overcome myself in being a life coach. Was I had the vision for being a life coach for actually quite some years before I was actually able to embrace the identity of actually being a life coach and actually presenting myself in public as a life coach. I had a lot of resistance to it, and there's probably issues like not feeling ready, or which is also connected perhaps to not feeling good enough. And one of the things that I have observed, when we're not feeling good enough, we're always looking outside of ourselves to get more knowledge or more certifications or more experience in order for us to feel ready. And, and the truth was, I knew that I was ready. It just was a big leap of faith to actually call myself a life coach. And and in general, I think where I was going initially with the question regarding why don't we ask ourselves this question, who am I? And it's because I think we assume it's such a fundamental question and it's something that we're conditioned to know the answer to. It's one of the first things we learn when we're like infants. And one of the ways that we identify is by our name. Your parents are telling you who you are by giving you a name. And then you identify with the name. And so when somebody asks you, who are you? You say, I'm Tyler, And I guess this particular question is a bit deeper than that, because you're not really your name, And so the question is designed to provoke some introspective work. And the reason why I chose a guy meditating for this slide is because there's two ways that we generally get the answer to this question. And one is dictated by what the world tells us we are. I'm a male, I'm married, I'm a father, I'm a coach, I'm a designer. It's based on what you do or where you come from. And they're all external things. And also, they pertain to who you're with. When I'm with my kids, I'm their dad. When I'm with my wife, I'm her husband. When I'm with my parents, I'm their son. So the identity, when it's based on something external, it's always kind of changing. Even though there's only one of me, I've got all of these so-called identities. And the slide here is of a guy who's actually turning inward and asking and contemplating, who am I? And he's looking for answers within himself, not by what he's being conditioned to believe himself to be. And so, I have to touch on this. I wasn't sure I was going to, but, a lot of young people, Paul, they are struggling with their identity. Like there's so many different options available these days in terms of how you want to identify. And what's interesting about that at a young age is it's determined by kind of how you feel or how your sexual orientation. That is kind of how we identify when we're young. And you can see there's a huge portion of the population, the youth, they have challenges in this area in finding out who they are. And, on my own quest for self-discovery, I have, I think, gone to a teacher who didn't present themselves as a life coach to me, but they're really my inspiration for being a life coach because of the impact that I received from my teacher, who I still consider myself a student of after, the past 30 plus years. But my teacher showed me who I really was and taught me how to find out who I really was by looking within myself and basing my identity on my experience of who I was, not just what my teacher was telling me who I was. My teacher would suggest you're not this. So you have a body, for example, but are you your body? You have a mind with thoughts. Are you your mind? You have a heart with feelings. Are you your feelings? Or, and this is something that she taught me to meditate on, or are you the observer, the knower, the witness of your feelings, of your thoughts, of your body? And so I'm quite happy to share this little bit of knowledge in this talk today, because I would say that it has really given me certainty in myself of really knowing who I am. And, it's been a real blessing, and it's part of why I wanted to talk about it a little bit today, just to share that with anyone who's watching. So
thanks for sharing that, Tyler. It's it's a fascinating thing to have a think about. I think so many of us understand the labels that are put onto us and the labels that we put on ourselves. And I think you're spot on. We're not those labels. And when we can really start to understand a little bit more about who we are, that is what propels us to be able to move towards the things that are really important to us. What was coming up for me there when you were talking is, that ability to be able to understand who we are really helps us to get to the why we're here, why we're doing why we're on this journey ourselves, why we want to be in a position to be able to help others along their journey as well. And, I think the more that we can understand about ourselves, the more we can start to take steps in the direction that we really want to be heading. I'm interested to ask, Tyler, what your experience has been of this deeper understanding that you've been able to obtain, how that's helped you to take some of the steps towards where you are today.
Okay, yeah. Well, I touched on it a little bit. I just feel like I have really received in my own quest, and we talked a lot about vision and, a vision quest, for example. I don't know, have you heard that term before, Paul? Vision quest? Yeah. And so it's really about understanding why am I here? What is my ultimate purpose in life? And actually, my teacher told me that one of your essential reasons for being here is to know and discover who you really are. And she spoke very highly about the essential nature of a human being, like who we all really are. And, she gave me methods for experiencing and understanding and realizing who I am. And so I would say for myself, Paul, that was my initial vision since my early 20s, is what you could call self-discovery or self-awareness or self-realization. And it's something that I pursued quite seriously for the majority of my life. And what I've received in the process has, in many regards, been fulfilled. So my original vision for my life, my original purpose in life, I feel has been received and fulfilled. And what's interesting Paul, is that it was a bit of a restart for me, because now all of a sudden it was like the fulfillment of my vision, but now it was like, well, what is my next vision for my life? And so that is what propelled me to have the vision of being a life coach. And part of the reason, like this question, when we spoke about vision over the past couple of weeks, you could also say, what is it that you want? And what's interesting about that question, when somebody says, what do you want? When somebody asks you, what do you want? I think the normal tendency is to think about, what do I want to get? Right? What do I want to receive? How do I want to benefit? And really, like, I did a bit of research. I haven't done a vision quest before, but I know I have good friends that have done it, more than one. And one of the main things that you're trying to become very clear on is this very question: why am I here? How can I serve others? What can I give? So when you ask, what do you want? Instead of just kind of being more selfish about, well, what can I get? Like interpreting the question that way. The question really is, what do I want to give? What am I here to give? And for me, the process has been, I had to understand what it is that I've received first. It was very important for me to recognize all that I've been given. And for me, in the process of recognizing that, Paul, a tremendous amount of gratitude I became conscious of, I became aware of. Like I've had tears of gratitude because of the recognition of what it is that who I actually am and what it is that I've actually received. And so I think one of the things that stops people from giving or from even becoming a life coach is this sense of, we touched on it briefly, not being good enough. Like, who am I? And that's one of the things that I faced in my journey of becoming a life coach. Like, who am I to life coach others? Like I've got my own challenges and stuff that I'm dealing with. And it's not really about, for me, that I'm any better or special or anything like that. It's a sincere desire to help and serve others. That's really what I think has been the other motivator for me to be a life coach. So, yeah. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Tyler. It's really interesting to get your perspective on the journey that you've been through, and I love hearing that you've sort of accomplished the initial purpose or the initial vision, and now you've got this opportunity to be able to put some time and energy into what happens next. Then, I love hearing that it's very much about how you can serve and what you're going to give, and I think that's a fantastic base or a fantastic place to be able to build a coaching business from and a coaching practice from. For me, it'll be, a similar journey in some senses. It's, when I first jumped into, thinking about becoming a coach, I absolutely looked at my strengths, looked at the things that I loved doing in my previous life in the corporate world. And it was that helping people progress through their own career, their own journey. The coaching and the training that I was doing there played a big part. There was also a sense, I guess, of, trying for the first time ever, I guess, putting myself first in some ways, really putting some time and energy into figuring out what it was that I actually wanted, rather than when I'm all those years I was an employee, I had goals and dreams myself about doing my own thing one day. And I think over the years, there was potentially a element of resentment almost that built up to the point where I had to do something. And, circling back to that feeling of not being ready, I spent years knowing what I wanted to do, or not knowing exactly what I wanted to do, but knowing I wanted to do my own thing, spent multiple years waiting for that feeling of being ready. And it all came to a head at mid 2018, I believe it was. And, finally built the courage to make that decision to leave that position I was in, still not quite knowing exactly what I wanted to do. And, it evolved into, my journey evolved into what I'm doing today. And I would not be doing anything differently. I'm now looking at how I can continue to make progress in my goals and how I can continue my path forward. And, doing these type of, doing this channel that we've set up is a huge step in that direction for me. Ultimately, I want to move into doing some group coaching and doing that type of thing. I think it would be a wonderful thing to get into, so I can have that opportunity to touch more people. I think that'd be a fantastic place to get to. But yeah, back to that identity piece, that's who I am now. I'm someone who, I think I've got that balance of putting my mask on first, being able to look after myself and not feel selfish about that in some ways, knowing that it's for the greater good, because the more I can look after myself, the more I'm able to help others that, whether that be my family, wider friends, colleagues, or the people that I'm lucky to be working with. Yeah. They're all sort of really interconnected.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe as you were speaking, another question arose, like, who are we? Because I think we both kind of shared that we're here to serve. And then the question kind of arose as I was listening to you, who are we here to serve? And, I think for now, if we can just touch on it a little bit, that I think we both agree that we want to serve others who have a desire or a vision to be a life coach, or who have maybe been certified to be a life coach, and maybe they don't feel that they're ready, or they're uncertain about what their next step actually is, in order to actually, evolve and build their business and attract clients and so forth. Would you agree? Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Paul?
I heard you say that earlier. That this whole conversation really about the feeling of being ready. I think it's something that so many people in general struggle with. And we're all different. We've all got different appetites to risk. The solution to it is going to be quite different for all of us, I guess. But this is a challenge that, that we need to be able to find a way past, because the alternative is never feeling ready and constantly feeling like I need more. I need more education. I need more training. I need more information.
Yeah.
I think, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that, this is just something that we need to be able to find a way to work through.
Yeah. And that's, I think, also part of, the importance of the first question of who am I? And, that's part of knowing your true authentic self and having confidence in being your true essential self and knowing that you are good enough and that you are worthy. And what I heard you say, Paul, is that, perhaps the issue is not feeling ready. So we all have a desire or a vision for our lives that, some of us discount, or we keep it kind of suppressed or hidden. But if we're being fully honest with ourselves, we do have a dream, we do have a vision, and the main issue is not feeling ready or good enough to actually take steps towards manifesting or fulfilling that vision. And so that's these are kind of, I think what we're getting at is some of the underlying issues for why people have challenges and why they're struggling or suffering. And it's very rewarding work to meet with people at this level and to help them break through their resistance to fulfilling their vision and their dreams. So this next third essential question for being a life coach, what do I do? And what was interesting when we spoke, Paul, is even if we're certified to be a life coach, we may not know what to do after our certification in order to attract clients and to build our practice. Do you have any insights that you want to share regarding this topic, this question?
Yeah, look, this is something that I do feel very passionately about. If you're new, you probably haven't seen the previous conversations that we've had, but finding a way to get started, get into action, these things that we're wanting to move towards are the things that are most important to us in our lives. We've spoken about vision and how important it is to, when we make those decisions about the thing that we want to do, we're committing ourselves. We're saying no to so many other things that we could be doing in the meantime. We're committing ourselves to one thing. And the only way we're going to get there is through taking action towards those goals. So for me, it's very much about finding the way that allows you to take action, whatever that looks like. For all of us, it's going to be different. We briefly spoke about some of the tools that we've got at our disposal in the last chat that we had. But yeah, it's about doing something that's taking you a step closer to your goal, a step closer to that vision.
Yeah. We, that's absolutely true. And one of the things that we both identified in our previous talks is, when we don't know what to do, I think that I would say the first step is to really go back into the previous question: what is it that I want? Why am I here? And really to gain certainty in your vision for your life, and to know your own, your own sense of self-worth, and that you're deserving and that you can do it. And one of the biggest things that I needed to do, Paul, when I was seeking to fulfill my original vision, was I needed to I needed to put my ego aside, because how I was kind of, the sense that I got, that how I was conditioned, is that I'm supposed to have all the answers, and that I'm supposed to know what to do. And the truth was that I didn't have all the answers, and I didn't know what to do. And so that was a real, I guess the word is, I had to humble myself, and I had to ask for some support and some guidance. And I'll tell you that that was the best decision of my life, was admitting to myself that I didn't have all the answers, that I didn't know what to do. But that doesn't mean I don't want the answer. I had a strong desire to find out, why am I here? And by just admitting that I didn't know, it opened up the possibilities for me. Rather than thinking I know, well, I'm supposed to do this or I'm supposed to do that. It really opened up my horizons, if you will, and expanded my vision and my life purpose. So, one of the things that I want to encourage any viewers to consider is to reach out to us for some support, and to follow us on Facebook. And we have some free giveaways, some ebooks that you're welcome to download, and we'll put links in the comment section below. And we would love to just hear if any of this is making an impact on you, and we'd love to hear from you. And that's about it for me. Paul, is there anything you want to add before we conclude?
There is so much more that we could be talking about on this topic. I think, one of the biggest takeaways that I think is important to keep in mind is that it's completely normal to feel these feelings that pop up around uncertainty, around what's going to happen in the future. You and I have both been in that position in the past where we didn't have any idea how it was going to play out. We knew what we wanted to do. We found a way to push through the resistance. And I think it's really important to be able to see people that have been able to come out the other side and learn some of these lessons around what's required. And I think the reason that's important is because it gives the people that are those couple of levels below us hope that this is possible to succeed in this awesome industry that we're working in.
Absolutely. Yeah, another great conversation today, Paul. Thank you so much again for your insight and your wisdom. And I look forward to speaking with you again on Tuesday. So until then, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you then. Bye for now.
Thanks, Tyler. Bye for now.